let's start making our constructing our book. So I like to use these acrylic spacers that are available on countrycraftcreations.com. They help me keep everything straight and lined up and looking good. You're gonna want 2 pieces of a medium weight chipboard. I like to use medium weight chipboard for my cover and my spine. Sometimes, like I said, it depends on the project. Sometimes I'll use a lightweight chipboard. But you want 2 pieces that are cut to 6 by 8 inches for your front and back cover, and one piece, that is 1.5 inches by 8 inches, and that's going to be the spine. It goes right there. So I have already wrapped one of them just to save some time, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap the other cover and the spine with you. So I like to use my scoreboard. Makes this a breeze. I'm going to take one of my spacers and put it along the left hand side. I'm going to line up my cardstock. The cardstock that you're going to want to use to wrap this for both the front and back cover is 8 inches by 10 inches. And for the spine piece, it is, I cut 4.5 by 10 inches, and we'll get to the spine in a minute. So I like to use these full sheet score tape pages. They make just wrapping covers in a breeze. So you can go ahead, you can use the regular score tape. This is 3/8 of an inch, or if you have 1 inch or 2 inch, it's even better. Or you can even use whatever your favorite wet glue is. My favorite is art glitter glue. So I'm going to remove the backing here, and it had a little too much. It was a little bit too long. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm just going to kind of go along the edges and make sure that I get all the adhesive. I don't want anything hanging over. All right, so now I'm going to take one spacer, put it along the left hand side, and one at the top. Okay, so now that'll ensure that you have a 1 inch border around all sides. And then I'm just going to line this up, stick it down. Now, if you don't have these acrylic spacers, you can also use some scrap pieces of chipboard. So that works really well also. Excuse me. And then I'm just going to go ahead and burnish to make sure that the paper adheres to that chipboard of the score tape. Okay, so then you're stuck with something like that. And let's go ahead and do the same thing with the spine piece, just while we're at it. So again, this is 4.5 inches by 10 inches. Excuse me. And we're going to wrap this, pretty much the same way. You're going to put your 1 inch spacer across the top, and then what we do differently on the spine is we want at least 1.5 inches overhang, so that we can wrap everything. But I have done this several times without any issues. I've used 1 inch all the way around. It just depends. So you just have to be careful. We're gonna put our spacers in. Oops, line it up. And mine's off a little bit, but that's okay because it's gonna get wrapped up. And the spacers did their job again. They did really well. Okay, let's put those away. All right, so let's start off. Set that one aside. Let's go back to the cover. So typically what I do is I will just take my stylus or whatever type of scoring tool you have, and just to help get it ready, just go ahead and score along that chipboard. Just helps it look a little neater. So then what I do is I use my desktop and just fold right up along that chipboard. So you see what I did there? So I like to do that on all 4 sides. Give it a good burnish. Telling those paper fibers what they need to do. Do the same here. And we do this the same way we've done all of our other covers. Okay, I'm going to switch to my little cutter bee scissors because they're cute, number one. And I like to use these when I'm doing fine detail cutting. So right along where you made that score line, you'll see that, where you scored, you'll see that there's this little square. We're gonna cut along that score line right up to the chipboard. Don't go past the chipboard, don't cut into the chipboard. And then we're going to come over to the other side, and you can kind of line up your scissors. See that with the side of with the very, very edge of the chipboard? And we're just going to cut it. Basically, we're just trying to avoid any chipboard showing, so you should have that teeny tiniest little bit of paper there. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to do that again. And give that a little, I might have cut that one a little too close. We'll see. Then I like to flip it around, cut it again. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. You're just trying to get rid of some bulk. Okay, and you should have something left that looks like that. A lot of people do these different ways. I know a lot of my fellow design team members, some of them do it differently. I just have always done it this way. But what I like to do is now take that excuse me, that left and right flap and fold it back. And then I like to bend bend this one back to see if I have any overhang. It doesn't appear that I do. I'm going to fold this one back. That's close. But I don't know if you can see, but I do have these tiny little these little teeny tiny little bits of paper here. I'm just going to cut those off. Excuse me, been fine all day. As soon as I turn on the camera, now I'm coughing. Okay, so get rid of those teeny little pieces there. Right? So then you can use score tape here, excuse me, or wet glue. I just like to use my wet glue on my covers, and I'm just going to take a little bit. Oh, that came out too fast. New bottle of glue. I'm just going to put a bead of glue right along the edge of that chipboard to help it stick. Put some glue here. I got a little too much right there. Got a little puddle. Okay. And then let's... Oh, did I do that the wrong way? I did. I typically go this way first. Let's do this one real fast before that glue dries. So put some glue here. I'm gonna glue that down. Oh, I always have a dry baby wipe or a paper towel, or so. Actually, I try not to use paper towels because they kind of shed. So I use a dry baby wipe. And then we're going to do this side. Okay. All right. Since this glue was already on here, I'm just going to go ahead and fold that in. Now, you can. So I did that backwards. I typically like to start with the top and the bottom, excuse me, of the cover, just because I like that little clean, it's hard to see it there, but I like that little clean, what would you call it, fold, where that folds over, so that when I put the pattern paper on, it covers that up. But it doesn't matter, it's going to get covered up anyway. I just, everybody has their preferences, so. feel like I'm all over the place today. Okay, and the last one. Okay, now I'm going to take my bone folder and give everything a really good burnish. Make sure that it sticks, the paper sticks really well to the chipboard. And then one other thing I like to do is come along the top and just kind of flatten the paper against the chipboard, because if you remember, we put that glue up against the edge. Just cleans it up a little bit. Okay, so there's that page wrapped, and here is the first one. So front cover, back cover. Okay, and then we have our spine piece. We are just going to do basically the same thing. Going to score along the edge of the chipboard. You could put this in your scoreboard and score it at a 1/2 inch, you know, and then place the chipboard in, but just seems easier to me. Right, and then I'm going to fold it, burnish, okay. And do the same here. I hope everything's in focus. Looks like it. I'm watching on my computer screen right here in front of me. It looks like everything's okay. Alright, so then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut up along that score line just to the chipboard, or just where the two lines intersect. Okay, and we do the same on this side. Okay, so you can see those are cut free. So then we're going to come over here. It's a bit of a longer cut. I might want to use a longer scissor. Just cut straight up. Got a little bit of a, okay. Oh, see, now I cut a little too far there, but that's okay. It'll, once I glue it, it'll be fine. And do the same here. And the same over here. Oops. That one's a little too slanted, but that's okay. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and fold that back on itself again. Oh, I neglected to say, your spine, the piece of chipboard is 1.5 inches by 8 inches. And that's all in the cutting guide. So I'm going to fold that back, make sure I don't have any overhang. I have this tiny bit up here. I always have that. And a little bit right here. Okay. And you can see I have that little stinker right there. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so on this one, we're only going to wrap the little short ends. For now, sorry. So I'm adding my glue. You can add your score tape and go ahead, stick that down. Let's move to this side. Stick that down. Now see, that is going to give me a little bit of a headache here. So see that little piece that where I said I snipped in there? I'm going to try and glue that down. I'm not sure that it's going to stay, but we'll try. Oh, yep. Perfect. All right. So let's go ahead and burnish those. Flatten those like we did before. Wow, that looks really wonky. See how I cut that a little too severe, but that's okay because it's just going to get hidden. Let's try to clean that up. There. Whoops. Nobody needs to know. Okay, so now what we're going to do, take either your front or your back cover, doesn't matter. You're going to want to put your, this is the way I do it. You might have a favorite way of doing it. Actually, let's add some score tape. I like to add some score tape right before that score line. Maybe, I don't know, not even, maybe 1/8 of an inch away from the score line. So this is just to help it catch, catch pretty quickly. But I'm also going to add some wet glue. It doesn't make sense, but it is what it is. And let's do that on the other flap. Okay. Oh, wrong way. Okay. So go ahead and choose a side. Choose wherever you, oops. Take off my score tape paper, backer. And I like to actually put some wet glue along this to give me some wiggle room to move it around. Okay, I'm going to do a thin line right above the score tape. Okay, does that look out of focus? Let me see. Hold, please. Okay. No, that's still off focus. Okay. All right. So now I like to add this into my scoreboard. We're going to take the unwrapped side down, and we're just going to line this up. Make sure that everything lines up. Make sure that you leave some space. You don't want to go too close to the edge of the chipboard spine, or the spine chipboard, and just set it down. So see, if you push down on that, see how that pops up? That's how you know you did it correctly. I have a little bit of glue seepage, so I'm just going to wipe that up. Come over to this side. Give that a good burnish. Make sure the glue sticks in the score tape. Then what I like to do is take a blunt edge of my bone folder here. This is my Teflon bone folder. You could use your scoring tool if you could get it in there. You could use a pen cap. You just don't want to use anything that is pointy, that will cut through the cardstock. So basically I'm just defining, see, look at that. I have a little piece of overhang there. I'm just going to cut that off. Cross my fingers. Okay. Then I'm going to flip it back over to this side. Take my bone folder, and it just pretties that up. It just looks fantastic. Love it. Okay. Let's do the same on the other side. Add the other cover. Right, this time I'm going to put this side in my scoreboard. I'm going to add my little bead of glue here. Oh, well, that is not a straight line. Okay. Take my other cover, again, unwrapped side face down. Actually, I'm going to move this up a little. Okay, make sure everything is nice and straight. Give myself a little bit of space. Okay. Wipe up a little bit of glue. go. Let's turn that over. And then what I would typically do if I wasn't doing a video, I would take a couple of these little, I don't know if these are Dollar Tree clips, I'm not even sure, but I would then take them and just kind of put them on here and give this a couple of minutes to dry, and put one on here and one on here. But in the interest of time for the video, I'm just going to, and especially because I use score tape, I'm going to go ahead and see. That's the lay flat method. I wish I would have moved this one over a little bit more, but that's okay. I actually might, haven't decided yet, but I might actually do like a special treatment on the spine, but we'll see. All right, so our book, we have the shell made. Okay, so now what we're going to want to do, let me grab the paper that I'm going to wrap, I'm going to cover up the rest of the chipboard. Now, you don't have to do this. I think at the very least, I would recommend that you put some chipboard over the spine, because this over here will get covered with your pattern paper, but I'm a little bit weird. I like to have all this covered before I put the pattern paper down. I know, I'm just backwards. So what I do is I take a piece of my cardstock that is 4 by 7 7/8, and yeah, see, that looks, I am so sorry, this looks out of focus to me. Oh, good gravy. I'm using a different software, so please bear with me. And I hope you can see that. Okay. All right, so now I'm just going to take my score tape. And I thought I did this before I got on camera, but let's just add score tape. You can also use the score tape sheets, the full page sheets. I think they're 8.5 by 11, and cover this cardstock. I don't like to use it on my cardstock. I like to save it for my chipboard. It makes it so much easier to wrap. And then I'm going to do this. You could use wet glue, but I'm just impatient. And helpful little tip. As I'm going and I'm working on my albums, I always write the dimensions of my cardstock on my paper. Yeah, don't forget to flip that over, because you don't want that showing on your spine. Unless maybe, of course, you do, but okay. I'm going to remove my score tape backer. So it's sticking to me. So make sure I straighten it. And just center it over your spine. And give it a good burnish. Okay, so then next we're going to need 2 pieces, one for the right side, one for the left side. So it kind of just covers it up, keeps it nice and clean. You want 2 pieces at 5 7/8 by 7 7/8. Again, that's how I do it. You could do it whichever way you prefer. You can use your pattern paper here. I am just going to add my score tape. So the paper collection that I'm using, you would have seen at the beginning of the video. I am using the paper collection called SOAR, S-O-A-R. It's exclusive to Country Craft Creations, and this this book is probably my, I don't know, my 6th or 7th project that I've done. This is the first book I've made using SOAR, but I made several 3D projects that I actually sent to Tamara to put it, you know, so she could display in the store. I'm pretty sure I have a YouTube video. It's either YouTube or on my Instagram. My YouTube is, well, you know, because you're here. My Instagram, well, this is my YouTube. And this is my Instagram handle. So you can go over there and you can see the projects that I made. This paper is absolutely gorgeous. It's probably, so far, no, not probably, I know, it is my favorite paper collection that Tamara has done. This is a paper collection that's exclusive to Country Craft Creations, and I love it. The most recent project I made is this adorable camera. So you can see the beautiful paper in the background. I mean, it doesn't hurt that, you know, pink is my absolute favorite color. So this is a die that I had. It's a Sizzix die. Yeah, this opens up and there's, you know, like an accordion pocket there. I just love it. Anyway. Okay, can you tell I'm trying to kill time so that I can get this score tape on here? So yeah, so I mean, it's pinks and purples, very springy, summery. You know, it's got beautiful butterflies and beautiful flowers. The graphics are incredible. The colors are gorgeous. So yeah, it's my favorite. So yeah, I'm using this in my design team project. So this book is my design team project. And then I have the camera. I made a 3D purse. I made several flowers, handmade flowers. I just can't stop using it. I told Tamara and she's like, you have to stop. We have other papers. Anyway. So we're almost finished wrapping our cover, or making the bones of our book. Okay, so let's go ahead and stick this one down. I'm just lining it up on the bottom with the other 2 pages that we did. Keep it as straight as possible. Ooh. Uh-oh, I think I might have went crooked there. Oh, nope. Whew. All right, so let's give this all a good burnish. Okay, now what we want to do is, you can see it's pretty rigid, right? So I'm going to come in, lift this up, so see how it starts to define the crease there? And then I'm going to take my bone folder, again, a blunt edge. What is on my bone folder? And just help define that. Push that cardstock into that adhesive. Just makes it nice and clean. Okay, I'm going to come back here and let's do this again. Don't push too hard because you don't want it to tear your paper. So, all right, everybody hold their breath. There we go. Just kind of making sure all this is nice and straight. And as you can see, the artisan cardstock, absolutely beautiful. No rips, no tears. Okay, so let's flip it over and do the other side. See, what doing this does is it actually molds that paper around the edge of the chipboard, which really defines the spine, and it's just gorgeous. Okay. And there is our book. All right, so we can actually move on. Oh, as you can see, I did not catch that. I didn't stick that down, didn't burnish that very well, and the cardstock was sticking up. Yep, see over here? See how I didn't stick that down? Shame, shame, shame. All right. Fantastic. Better check down here. Right, that's our book. I just love this white cardstock. It's just incredible. Love it. All right, so let's move on to, let me find it here. We are going to start the pages. The pages are very simple. All right, I lost my hinge. Where is my hinge? If you were my hinge, where would you be? I think you would be right here. Yes, it's 2.5 by 7.5. Okay, so for our hinges, let's just get this out of the way. Everybody hates the hinges, including myself. This is just a 2-page book. This is what our hinge will end up looking like, and it's going to live right there on the 1.5-inch spine. So to get this hinge, and you know, you're all probably better at making this hinge than I am. Look at my disgusting dirty scoreboard. This is a well-loved, well-used scoreboard. So our hinge is, let me write it on here. Where's my pencil? I don't want to write on this. Yeah, just in case. 2.5 by 7.5, because our base pages are going to be 7.5 inches. So you're going to put that in your scoreboard on the 2.5-inch side, and we're going to score it 1/2, 1, 1.5, and 2. Okay? Simple, right? And then what I like to do, come here, I'm going to flip this over. This is going to be my back. And then what I like to do is to take my score tape, and I realize now maybe using white was a bad thing because you can't really, so you can see the score lines. We're going to start on the left-hand side. We're going to skip 2. Then we're going to take our 3/8-inch score tape and stick it down and burnish. That is the back. That is the part that's going to actually stick to the book. So now, we'll go back to the front. We're going to fold on that first score line. Okay? And then we're going to fold it back on itself on the second score line so that we have a mountain fold. Okay, and then we're going to make sure you burnish these really well because we're going to loosen up the fibers of the paper. Okay, so we have our first hinge, and then here's the gusset. Okay, and then we're just going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to score it towards myself, or fold it towards myself on that score line. Then I'm going to fold it away from myself and create that other mountain fold, and I will show you in a second. So you should end up with something that looks like that. And as you can see, that piece of score tape we put there is what's going to hold the pages in the book. Okay, but what I need to do is, glue down these flappy things. So you can use wet glue, or you can just use a piece of your score tape. I'm going to put my score tape in. I'm not sure I'm explaining this well. It makes sense to me, but I used to hate this hinge system. I used something completely different, but I'm finally on board after so many years. So I'm going to close that up. Okay, so there's our first hinge. And then seal that down And that is our second hinge. One thing that makes me crazy though, I don't know, you're not going to be able to see, oh, you can see it right here. See how that little piece, and it's all in how you fold the paper, but I have that little bit of overhang and I want to get rid of it. So I'm getting out the big boys and trying not to, I don't want to cut into the hinge. Let's see if I could get rid of that. Looks like it's gone. Oh. I have the same over here. That's weird. I guess when I folded it, I didn't fold it exactly. Oh, I think I cut into my hinge. No. Okay. So there is our hinge system. And then what I like to do, you know, it seems weird to me too that there's only 2 hinges. Okay, what I like to do is to make it easier to slide the base pages onto the hinge system, I just like to go in and angle the tabs. So I'm going to angle that one. So see how I did there? I'm going to do it here, and it just makes it much easier to slide the base page on. Okay, so it should look something like that. So now I have 2. If anybody wants one, let me know. So, okay. All right, next, put my lid on my glue because it's going to dry out. Let's clean this stuff up and get this out of the way, and we're going to move forward to the base pages. The beauty of the base pages is they're both the same. So I'm going to show you one set, and then you can do the rest. Actually, before we do the base pages, let's just do the inside the pockets on the inside cover. Okay, so I'm going to put 2 pockets here. One of them is going to be, you take a piece of your cardstock, 2.5 by 9 inches. We're going to put it in our scoreboard, score it at 1/2 on the short side. We're going to score it at 1/2 of an inch on 3 sides. Okay, and then we'll turn that around, score it at 1/2 of an inch. And then we're just going to go ahead and where those 2 score lines intersect, you can see that little square. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, see that little square right there? We're just going to angle right up to that corner, and then you should have something like that. And then let's do the same. Okay. So there's that pocket. And then the next one, you know, on another piece of your pattern paper that's 2 inches by 9 inches, and I just put an F here for the front pocket. And this is pocket 2 because pocket 1's going to go here, pocket 2 is going to go here. Clever, right? And then on the 9-inch side, you're going to score it at 1/2 of an inch. You're going to rotate it to the other side and score it at 1/2 an inch again. Okay. And then we are just going to angle the corners. Again, it just helps stop, you know, when you're putting things in and out of the pocket. When these are angled like this, tabs actually slide in much more easily. All right, so now we're going to just fold on those score lines, burnish. Okay, we're going to start with pocket 1. Let me get this out of the way. Pocket 1. Let's fold on those score lines. And again, I use score tape, but you can use wet glue here. Okay, there's that little, see, I have that little jerk. It's not the paper, I was the jerk. Okay, so then what I like to do, oh, get yourself a pokey tool if you don't have one. I like to go ahead and form the actual pocket. Oh, see what I forgot to do? We want to, I just finished saying, when you tab these, when you angle these tabs, it makes it easier, and I forgot to do it. Okay, so I like to fold the bottom up and kind of create the pocket. And it just makes it easier for me to place the pocket while things aren't just flapping all over the place. Okay, so then we're going to make sure we have the right side, whichever you chose as your front. Okay, I'm going to take my book and I am going to turn it to make it easier for me to line up. Okay, so I am going to take the folded edge of the pocket and line it up with the edge without going over the edge of the cover. I'm going to stick that down. I'm going to give that, oops, come on. Give that a good burnish, especially in those corners. Okay, and as you can see, let me find a piece of, everything is sliding in there really well. Oops. Okay, and now we have pocket number 2. You can decide how far away you want pocket number 2. You know, you want to make sure you leave yourself room for if you're going to put tags or something in there. So I kind of like, let me straighten this out. I'm just using my grid to straighten out my book. I kind of like, I don't know, about 1/2 inch away from this pocket. So take off that backing tape. Again, I don't know, is that 1/2 inch? I don't know. I'm just going to stick that down and burnish it. And I know you're going to say, wait a minute, the paper's going to show through, but what I'm going to do when I put a piece of pattern paper on here, I'm going to actually go about, cut the pattern paper so that about 1/2 inch of it goes in that inside the pocket, and you will never see this part, if that makes sense. So I have 2 tags that I'm going to put in the front here. I cut 2 of them down to 5 by 7. One's going to go in here, and one's going to go in here, and then I'm so sorry, it's white cardstock. Here's the first one, here's the second one, and they'll be in the pocket. I'm also going to cut some smaller tags and put them inside there as well. So, all right, so there's that one. Let's set that aside. Okay, now for our base pages, what we have, again, let me mess with this focus again. Ugh. Oh, for heaven's sake. I am so sorry, guys. I will cut that out. Okay, so your base pages, they are just a basic sleeve. Okay, so you're going to want 1 piece of your cardstock. Let me make sure I give you the right measurement. 1 piece of cardstock that is 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. Okay, you're going to want to cut 2 of those. And then you're going to want 1 piece that, then you're going to want to cut 2 pieces that are 5.5 by 7. And you know, I did not do, I created both pieces. You can see here, well, maybe you can't. Oh. Okay, so to make the base pages, you're going to want to cut 2 pieces of your cardstock that are 5.5 by 8.5, and 2 that are 5.5 by 7.5. Okay, so we're going to start with the 5.5 by 8.5. You're going to put it in your scoreboard on the long side, so 8.5 is in the top right hand corner of your scoreboard. You're going to score it at 1/2 inch and 8 inches, or you can score it at 1/2 inch, rotate to the other side, and 1/2 inch. Okay, and then you're going to angle the corners or tab the corners like we've done already. And we're going to fold on those score lines and burnish. And add your score tape or your wet glue. Okay, I'm just going to start, doesn't matter which end you start on. So then we are going to actually just close this up. So we are creating a sleeve. So what I'm going to do is put this back in my scoreboard, and then I am going to start off by lining up this bottom right angle. I don't always get it straight, but, and then you're just going to follow along, line that up. I find doing this in the scoreboard makes it so much easier. I'm going to do the same over here. Remove the backer or add your liquid glue. Again, I'm going to line it up in the scoreboard and just stick it down. Okay, it's inevitable for me that I have overhang. If it's possible, it's going to happen because I'm impatient. I don't take my time. And I always have to trim off just the slightest little bit. Oop. Okay. So there you have what I call the base page. It's just a basic sleeve. Okay, so you're going to want 2 of these for your project. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the one I just had. So here's my base page. Okay, when you put it together, when you assemble it together, it's 5.5 by 7.5. And we are going to start off what I'm just calling the flap. Do I have the right pages here? I do. Okay, so you're going to want to cut yourself another piece of cardstock that's 6 1/4 by 7 3/8, and I'm just calling that flap. We're going to put that in our scoreboard. And we are going to score at 1/2 inch, oops, if we had it straight, 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch. So basically, we're just giving ourselves just that little 1/4 inch gusset for, you know, because something underneath it is going to be a little bit bulky. Okay, so then we're just going to fold and burnish along those score lines. Okay. So it should end up looking something like that. And then, of course, you're going to want to angle those or tab, angle, miter your tab here. So, and then I put my score tape on the inside of the flap. So the flap is actually going to go inside your sleeve. So the left hand side is going to attach to the hinge. Do you remember we made this hinge? And it's going to attach inside there. This is going to attach inside the sleeve on the opposite side. Okay? So you're going to end up, you're going to have that little bit of a gusset there. So put your either your wet glue or your score tape on the inside of the tab, or the, yeah. I'm going to remove, or I'm going to attempt to remove my score tape. And then I like to, again, line everything up. Now this is 1/8 inch shorter than this. So you're going to want to line everything up as best you can. You don't want to go over that first score line. You want to go right up to it without going over it, and just go ahead and stick it down. Okay, so it's just nice and clean, It's inside there, so in the end you'll be able to put a large tag or something inside the sleeve. Or if you want, you can just glue that down all together. Okay. So at this point, also what I meant to say, if you wanted to round the corners, it makes sense to round the corners before you put everything down, but I rarely make sense, so I do it the hard way. Okay, so I just really quickly rounded those corners, you can see there. Okay, so now I'm going to open that flap, and then we have a belly band. That's not the one I want. Okay, so then we want a belly band that's going to be 3 inches by 6.5 inches. Okay, I'm going to put it in your scoreboard. Score it at 1/2 inch. Or you can put it in your scoreboard on the 6.5 inch side, score it at 1/2 inch, and then I rotate it and I score it at 1/2 inch again. Right? So then, as you can see, I have 2 of them, and I picked up the wrong one. Okay. Oop. You'll notice that I have a littlest, I have 1/8 inch of a gusset on mine. That's because mine is going to have, oops, it's upside down. Mine's going to have a card here that's pretty dimensional. So I just gave myself a little bit of a, because I'm going to send this as a gift. But I just need a little bit of a gusset on mine. So you don't have to do this part. So yeah, so yours is just fine at 3 inches by 6.5 inches, scored at 1/2 inch on 2 sides. Okay, and then you can decide if you want your belly band up high, if you want it down low. I'm just gonna do one, I'm gonna adhere it on one side at a time because I am famous for getting these crooked. So you're gonna wanna make sure your folded edge lines up with the edge of your page. Okay. And then stick down the other side. Just make sure you don't go over that score line. So as you can see, mine has a little bit of a gusset, but you don't need that. Okay, so there's that flap. That's our page so far. Then we are going to put a flap on the other side, and that flap is going to be 5.5 inches by 7 3/8. I'm calling this the outside flap, and you'll see why in a second. We're going to put that in our scoreboard at the 5.5 inch side on the top right, and we're just going to score at 1/2 inch. Super easy. Okay, I am going to round my corners. So we're going to fold on that score line and burnish. Sorry, I should have said you're going to want to cut 2 of these. Okay, one for this page and one for the other page. Because as I mentioned, the beauty of this is both pages are exactly the same. So it just makes it super easy. And then what I did is, this is going to, if you bring back your base page here, I am going to add this. Oh crap, I shouldn't have. Okay, I made a mistake. You do not want to round these corners on this bigger flap. Dang it. Because this one goes, well, we could round the corner. Let's just do it. Let's round the corners here. Just so they match. So yeah, so then what, sorry, let me back it up. So we're going to go ahead and put our score tape on the inside of the flap, remove the score tape backing. I know it looks a little funny right here, but that's okay, it's going to get hidden. And then we're going to take our base page, and line it up. You don't want to go over that score line, and stick it down. So what you should be left with is something that looks like that. And that looks a little funky there, but that's going to get covered up with pattern paper, so I wouldn't sweat that. Okay, so you can decide how you want to, well, before we close that, let's turn this over. And then what we're going to do is put a pocket on this page, on the back. So if this is all page 1, this is all page 2. This is page 2, okay? And this is just going to be a simple pocket page, very much like we did on the front cover, front inside cover. So you're going to cut one of these that's 4.5 by 6.5. Put it in your scoreboard on the 4.5 inch side. Actually, it doesn't matter where you start. You're going to score at 1/2 inch on the one short side and the 2 long sides. Okay? And then you're going to fold and burnish all 3 sides. So let's form that pocket. Okay. Remove your backer of your sticky tape or add your wet glue. Okay, I'm going to bring that page back in. So this, make sure that this goes the right direction. Your binding side is on the left, or your hinge side is on the left. This is on the right. Okay, so this was page 1. Flip it over for page 2. Just make sure it's straight. Okay, and I'm going to take my pocket, line up on the bottom left-hand side. Make sure everything is straight. I'm actually going to open that up so I can push it down. Okay. So there you have your pocket. If you want to, you can add a flap. I'm just keeping this pretty simple. So that is the first page. I'm actually going to grab some seam binding and we're going to tape that, or create a closure with some seam binding. I think I'm going to do, let's do purple. I'm going to do about 12 inches of seam binding, should be enough. Actually, let me go a little bit longer, maybe 13 inches. Cut it in half. Okay, then I'm going to take my score tape. I'm going to put some score tape, I don't know, maybe 1/2 inch or so on each piece of the ribbon, or sorry, the seam binding. Okay. And I'm just going to remove the backer. Obviously you want to do this before you put down your pattern paper, and you can decide where you want your closure. If you want it at the top of the page, the middle. I'm just kind of eyeballing, putting it in the middle. Let me see. Yeah, I think I want to do it this way. Shoot. Let me stick that in there. Just trying to match it up. Okay, and I'm just leaving a little bit here so that when I put my pattern paper on, because I like to have a little, no, see, I did that backwards. Don't do what I just did. Do it the right way. Okay, so that when the pattern paper goes on, it covers up the seam binding. God, I hope that made sense. It made sense to me. But what I want to also do here is just to stop it from fraying. I like to tie a little knot. I don't always do this. I always forget. But while it's on my brain, I'm going to do it. So see how it's already fraying? I don't know if you have fray check, or you could just use some glue or whatever, but I kind of like when it looks like it's all torn up. But what I try to do to stop that is just take some of these pinking shears and just cut the ends. Don't know if that works, probably doesn't, but I like to think it does. Okay, so then we're just gonna go ahead and tie that up. Okay, so that, okay, Marie, you can do this. Oh, for heaven's sake. I think I used a little too much seam binding. Okay, and you're going to do the same thing. Isn't that pretty? That purple is gorgeous. Actually, it looks navy blue on my screen. But, so you're going to do the same thing. You have your back pocket. You're going to create the exact same thing, and that's going to be page number 2. So you can just rewind and have the pleasure of listening to me ramble again. So that's page 1, and then you'll have page 2. But I will go ahead and show you how to put this in your book. So let's see. All right, I am going to, because this makes me nervous because there's only one little hinge holding this whole book together, holding the pages in, I'm going to add some wet glue. Not too much, just enough to give me a little time. So I'm going to leave about 1/4 of an inch on both the top and the bottom here. I'm going to try to make this straight as possible. Okay. Actually, let me pull that up, move it up just a little hair, just a smidge. I don't want my pages hanging over the bottom. Okay, and then just stick it down. Pray that you put it on straight. And then burnish the heck out of it. And some of my wet glue wants to seep out. Clean it up. Okay, and that should hold it. All right. Well, shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? I'm going to take these flags or these tags out because set those aside. All right. So then what we need to do is add some adhesive onto this hinge and add our page on. It doesn't want to cooperate. It's kind of hard to see, but let's go ahead. I like to use wet glue just in case, you know, I don't believe that score tape ever dries. I'm not 100% sure about that, but add my glue. Don't use a ton here. Don't put the glue over the score line on your hinge here because it'll just squirt out everywhere and it'll make a mess, and your cardstock is white, so you want to avoid that. Okay, so you don't want to make a mess like I just did. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and open this up I'm going to slide one end in. Make sure your page is on right side up. Oh, for goodness sake. Okay, I'm going to slide that on. Try not to go over the edge. There you go. So you see there? I hope you can see that. Line it up. Got a little bit of glue there. Okay, so our page is on. So again, this will be covered with pattern paper. So again, you won't see it. This will open like this. We have the belly band and the 2 pages, and then we have these 2 pages on the inside, and then we have this pocket. Okay, I'm just going to tie this up real quick. And then you will go ahead and add the second page in the exact same fashion. You add the second page here. And we're next going to work on the waterfall that's going to go on the inside back cover. All right. So you can see it doesn't look like much yet, but once we put that other page in and the waterfall, it'll bulk up the book. All right. So the way I like to start with a waterfall is I like to create it on the base first and then put the base in the book. I just find it easier. I think I stole that idea from Tamara years ago. But one thing I didn't do is put some score tape on the back of it. So let's do that. Okay. Oh, sorry, I just shook my camera. It's easier to put this on before you add the waterfall flaps. Okay, so this waterfall base measures 4 1/4 by 5 7/8. You only need one, unless you want to put 2 waterfalls in your book. In that case, have at it. Okay. So I'm just going to turn that over. That's the back. That's the part that's going to go into the book. So we have 5 1/4 or 4 1/4 by 5 7/8 is the base, and then we are going to. I cut 6 of these. I think 6 of them will fit on here. I'm not sure. We might only use 5, but just in case. So we have the waterfall flaps that are 3 3/4 by 4 1/4, and I cut 6 of them. And so what you're going to do is put these in your scoreboard. Where's my thingamajig? On with the 3 3/4 inches in the top right hand side, and you're just going to score it at 1/2 inch, and you're going to do that 5 or 6 times. I say go for 6 because I think it's going to fit. So then you'll score at 1/2 inch on all of them, and then add your score tape, or you can add your wet glue as you go along. So what I like to do is I turn mine upside down. So this is going to go in the back of the book like this. Okay. Now you may want to put your pattern paper down. I just don't like to waste the pattern paper. So, and I don't mind, oops, that is actually lifted up. I have to glue that back down. I'm just going to kind of center it within, if you remember, we put that piece of cardstock down to cover up the uglies of the chipboard. I'm just going to kind of center it on that piece of paper. I don't mind the little white border around it. I actually like it a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and turn mine this way. It's easier for me to work. And I will show you why in a second. Okay, so I am not going to, normally I would tell you when we have a flap like this, I would tell you to go ahead and angle or miter the corners, but we don't need to do that on this because I am in the end going to, one of the finishing touches or one of the little details when I'm decorating is I like to cover up this flap with pattern paper. So you don't have to do that, but I just like to do that. So I am going to, I'll move this up so you can see. Put this in my scoreboard. I'm going to fold my flap back so you can see it's sticking to my finger. The folded edge I'm going to line up with the edge of the mat, and it should all line up together. So I start off by lining up the bottom left and sticking it down. So it's going to flap up until you train the paper otherwise. So then lift it up and fold it. Okay, so then you have something that looks like that, has that little flap. See the flap? Okay, so I'll put that back in my scoreboard, open that up and take the next one, fold it back, burnish it really well, give it a good crease. Go ahead and add your score tape or your wet glue, and then we're just going to take this folded edge and we're going to butt it up right up against that last. So you can see this is that first flap. We're going to butt that up right up to the edge of that flap. Now you just want to be careful when you come back to burnish, make sure everything's lined up. You don't have this paper hanging over the edge of the mat. Sometimes that happens. The beauty of it is you can just cut it off. All right, so let's keep going. Oops. So that's what it would look like with 3. So this flap 1, flap 2, flap 3. Okay, one more. This may be the last one, I'm not sure. Yep. Got a little bit of crooked there. Dang it, it's okay. All right, yep. It's only gonna hold 5. So it's only 5 are gonna be able to fit on the mat. So you can see there. Okay, so this is going to go right inside here. If you decide that you don't want your waterfall at the top, or you can put it at the bottom, and you can put a photo mat up there. Another thing you can do, because, well, no, you can't because we put score tape on it. Don't put the score tape on it, and you can take your glue and just glue in a U shape, and you could turn this into another pocket. So you could put things inside of a pocket if you want to do that. I am just going to stick mine down, and I think I'm going to do mine up on top. Do I want mine on top? I'm thinking. Yes, let's put it on top, but I want to put down my closure first. I think I'm going to go with green on this one. So again, I'm going to measure out about 12 inches. Actually, I'm using this gorgeous Kelly green. Matches the paper collection really well. This one is just called purple, and then I have one more I'm going to use to close up the second page. This is light pink. Okay. Oh, I cut the wrong one. Oh, for heaven's sake. Okay. Cut this in half. Okay, I think the universe is trying to tell me, Anne-Marie, today's not a day for you to film. You're screwing up left and right. Okay. Let me grab those scissors back one more time. Okay, so I'm going to grab a piece of score tape. On the uncut side. All right. So, let's see, let's start with, again, for the closures, you can decide if you want to do a magnet, a magnetic closure. I have many tutorials with magnetic closures. Okay. You can go back and, you know, look for one of those. Many of the other designers, they have tutorials already also. Or if you need help with it, feel free to message me, and I'm always happy to help. Okay, there we go. Stuck that down. I don't like the way, I think I'm going to take a little piece of score tape. You know, that's overkill. That's a lot of pieces of score tape. But just to help hold that down, just in case. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to remove all of this junk from my score tape backer. My score tape, sorry. Okay. Now that I'm thinking about it, I really wish I would have made this a pocket, but that's okay. Okay, I'm going to have to stand up here. So I want to make sure that my book is straight. Ish. Okay. So then I'm going to come in each one of these little flaps here, give it a good burnish so it sticks really well. Okay, and I'm actually going to erase that. That'll get covered up with pattern paper anyway. So then we are going to go ahead tie the closure. Oh my goodness, come on. What a pretty green. Look how pretty that is. Now, because there's a fold in it, it'll take a minute, but I just love it, love it, love it, love it. All right, so that basically